It's time to get profound with Inbound. Hello, my friends, and welcome to the 222nd episode of the Sales Podcast. I'm Wes Schaefer, the Sales Whisperer, your host. If you missed last week, go to 221, session 221, and check out Sean Shuchuk. Sean is the #1 results coach in the country, and I don't use that title lightly. I've known Sean for several years through the Infusionsoft and Entreport community. The guy carries himself well. He is a professional when it comes to growing a business, running a business, and growing. So you will want to check him out. Today, we have a young gentleman that I think you will appreciate, Mr. Alex Berman. We're going to get into inbound marketing and how he actually quit his sales job to go back on a retainer as a consultant to his same company and help them with creating inbound leads. It's a good story, great results. I think you're going to get a lot out of it. Also, something you'll get a lot out of is a new live interactive sales training course I am launching. It's really not new. I've done it several times. I just haven't done it in a while. So it's probably new to you. It's called The Art of the Close. If you head over to art.makeeverysale.com, you can enroll. If you do so before the end of December 2016, you will get access to the Make Every Sale on-demand course. It's a $2,000 class and at no charge. And with that, you get access to our private Facebook community, and you get lifetime access to all three. Lifetime access to the community, lifetime access to the Art of the Close. So when I do this live course again, you can participate at no charge, and you'll have lifetime access to the Make Every Sale content. And that includes everything from scripts, bonus videos, templates that I've used, questions that I've asked to succeed in corporate America as a salesperson and in growing my own business at the Sales Whisperer. So I'll link to that as well, but head on over to art.makeeverysale.com to participate. Something I want to do today before bringing on Alex is a little book review. I was hoping to be done with this. I'm over halfway done. I've been going through my library and pulling out some oldies but goodies. I've got some new ones as well, but man, I've got a lot of gold sitting on my shelves, and you probably do too. You need to go through those and remember the things you probably have forgotten, right? But this book, I remember reading this years ago. We were actually camping, and I had the paperback version, and I read it cover to cover in like a 2-day weekend of camping on like a 4 or 5 day trip. Like the first 2 days, I just plowed through it, and it was a good read. It's a lot of story based, and which I think makes it easier to read. But the guy's name is Robert J. Ringer. The book has an interesting title called "Winning Through Intimidation," and I know that might turn off a lot of people. But you know what? A couple lessons there. One, make sure your titles, your headlines, do cut through the noise, and this one does. So whether it's an email, a direct mail piece, a book, right? Make sure it stands out, and his does. But this is a second edition. First one was in 1973. This one that I have in my hand is from 1974. Robert cut his teeth in real estate. So, you know, he was doing this in the 60s into the early 70s, obviously leading up to the book. There are some, out of date, to be polite, out of date analogies he uses. You could call them sexist, but there's still a lot of lessons to be learned. And the word intimidation, we might be a little more polite again nowadays, but you'll always hear me talk about negotiate from a position of strength, right? You want to be the one that is being seduced, right? Being called. It puts you in a better light when it comes to negotiation, to asking hard questions and getting them answered and getting to the truth. And so Robert outlines the many steps that he took, and they were quite elaborate. They were quite expensive, and they paid off, obviously. I mean, that's why he created a successful career in real estate and as an author. And I think he's still around. I've found him online over the years. I haven't gone back and looked him up recently. But, one of the things that resonated with me very early in the book, it's on page 6 in the hardcover edition, probably the same in the softback paperback. But he talks about the whole gist of this positive mental woo-woo attitude stuff. And, he says, you get a positive mental attitude when you're prepared. And I agree 100%. I had that same approach before I ever found his book, and maybe after reading his book several years back, that kind of sunk in as well and took hold. And I didn't even remember or realize it came from him. But like I said, I already had that approach because I always knew, going back to even playing football, I remember in my earliest, in high school, there were those guys that would run around, rah-rah, get fired up, bang heads and whatever. And I just sat in the corner. I was the quiet one. And I just was going through what I had to do to prepare. Okay, and it's not that I wasn't playing. I played. I was all state. I was all district, all city. I was a good athlete. Played in college. So, and that's how I prepared was to just get ready. If I knew I was ready, then I didn't need all the hype. And then, fast forward to the Air Force Academy. We used to have inspections. They called them SAMIs, Saturday morning inspections. And people would lose their minds all night Friday getting ready for it. I mean, like literally, some would stay up all night getting ready for an inspection. And, I was like, if you live every day pretty much in spec within regulations, how much do you really have to do to prepare? What does it really take? One of the things they would inspect, obviously, are our beds. Was the bed made? Did it have the hospital corners, the 45-degree angle at the foot? When you fold it down, when it turned down the bed, the white sheet had to be 6 or 8 inches, I forget. And you had a comforter based on your class year. And so it was a certain color that had to be folded in the shape of an E in a certain way. So your drawers had to be out, 6, 12, 18 inches. And I mean, everything was very precise. But I didn't live like a slob 6 days a week and then frantically clean up on the 7th. I kept my ducks in a row so that to prepare for the inspection, it would take an hour, 2 hours, whatever, but not 4 or 8 or 12 hours. Guys would sleep on the floor, right? These are 19, 20, 21-year-old, young men and women. Like as seniors, like you're not ready. After 3 years, you don't know how to get through an inspection quickly, so maybe I had a positive mental attitude back then because I was prepared. So that just really stuck with me. There's too many people making too much money, bilking too many others because they help you think that they've got an answer that you can't find on your own. The answer is do the work, right? Write the blog post, create the podcast, make the cold calls, create the direct mail pieces, create the social media posts, create the follow-up sequences, create the webinar, get prepared for the trade show. Too many people looking for shortcuts, the easy buttons. There are none. So, I've said this many a time. Your positive mental attitude follows the right actions. It's not the other way around. Too many people are like, oh, when I feel better, when things shape up, then I'll run that new ad. And no. Make the call. Write out the script. Get the list. Make the call. Leave the message. Set a date to do another one, to follow up. Do the right actions and you'll feel better. Just like going to the gym. I was tired this morning. I went to the gym anyway. When I got done with my workout, even though it was maybe 80% or 90% of what I do when I'm feeling totally perfect, so even though it wasn't totally perfect, I still felt good when I left. So the feelings follow the action. It's not the other way around. So So I like what Robert talks about there. Positive mental attitude comes from being prepared. And to maintain a positive attitude, he says, assume a negative result. And it's interesting how much that aligns with my own sales training when I talk to people about the number one job of a salesperson is not to make a sale. It's to prospect. And the number one goal, the job of prospecting, is not to qualify. It's to disqualify. You have to understand that most of the people you speak with and encounter today, right now, this minute, this hour, they will not be ready to hand over their wallet right now. Maybe they will in an hour or tomorrow or next week or next month. But very few are ready right this very moment. That's why you have to learn how to sort, sift, and separate quickly. A buddy of mine, Patrick McCluskey, would always say, I'm looking for the guy that's looking for me. Okay? If you're having a great sale on tires, right? You own a tire company, an auto shop. Doesn't matter how much the tires are discounted. If somebody just bought tires, right? They're a week old. They've got their Michelins. They just got them from Sears, right? And they drive by your shop. It doesn't matter if your tires are 50 or 60 or 90% off. They probably won't buy those tires because they're not a prospect. Oh, but I've got a positive mental attitude. So what? They are not qualified. Now, maybe you get their name and number. You know that they like good quality tires, so you put them down. Maybe you ask them quickly, hey, how much do you drive? If they drive a lot, then hey, follow up with them in a year. If they don't drive much, follow up with them in 2 or 3 years. But your positive mental attitude won't get them going right now. So to maintain that, assume a negative result, right? It's not that you cannot make the sale. It's just that you won't make the sale to a disqualified person. So relax, right? The other point he says, prepare for long-term success by preparing for short-term failure. Same thing. You're disqualifying. Very few people can say yes right now. So just lock that in your brain and move ahead. That's how to sustain and maintain that positive mental attitude, right? It says work efficiently versus long and hard. Because who defines what long and or hard work really is? I work a lot now inside of HubSpot as it's my web tool. So it replaced WordPress. It is my autoresponder, so I use it in place of Infusionsoft. So I like working inside of it, though. But to someone else, what I do in 10 or 20 or 30 minutes may take them 2 or 3 hours because they're just not accustomed to the platform. I've worked in it for over 2 years. Okay? So how do you define long, hard work? You need to work efficiently. Sometimes it pays to master something, to buckle down, right? Put your nose to the grindstone and master some new skill. But a lot of times it's better off to just outsource it, to sub it out, to hire somebody that can do that for you. So if you find yourself getting burned out, ask yourself, evaluate, are you really doing the right stuff? Are you doing the things that you should do? Are you majoring in the minors? Right? That's a sure way to experience burnout, to experience lack of profitability. It's a great way to just run yourself out of business. So stop majoring in the minors. Move the big rocks. Okay? And that's how you'll maintain that great attitude. That's how you'll maintain profitability. That's how you'll grow a business. Okay? So as time permits, I'll bring out some more. I may just do a whole separate podcast on this book. Maybe I'll sprinkle more of these in future podcasts. I imagine that I will. I like going through these because I don't read a book. I don't just skim a book, right? I've got 2.5 pages, legal pages of notes, very small print, single spaced. So I really go through books. I'll put them down. I'll go research something based on what I read. So even though I like to get through them fast when I can, sometimes I will go through and basically speed read a book and get done with it in an hour or a day, but then I'll go back and take notes. And then I keep these notes. I stuff them in the back of the book and keep them forever. I still have some typed written notes. I think it was like 30-something pages from early to mid-'90s on Tom Hopkins. And when I got to meet him, or at least have him on my podcast, haven't met him yet, I brought it up. I still have those notes, and those were typed out. So, I take my learning seriously. So I hope you appreciate it, these little finer points. Look for more of this in the future. But now let's get on to our interview with Mr. Alex Berman. Alex Berman, Las Vegas, Nevada, your outsourced CMO. Experiment27.co owner. Welcome to the Sales Podcast. How the heck are you?
Doing good, Wes. Thanks for having me on.
So, man, I was checking you out online. How do you go from Florida and you end up in Vegas? Come on. I know there's a juicy story, and if there isn't, make one up.
Well, Vegas is kind of my placeholder city because I'm actually a digital nomad. I lived in New York for 2 years. Then I was CMO at a startup, $100 million startup in SF. And then for the last year and a half, I've been living in a different city every month. Right now, I'm actually in Wichita, Kansas.
No way. Every month?
Every month I've been trying. Vegas was the first place I moved after New York because I wanted to go. I have some family out there, but I also wanted to do the opposite of that hustle of New York. I felt like Vegas would be pretty chill.
Did you like it?
It was good, yeah. They had a really good startup scene. I was hanging out mostly in downtown Vegas around Tony Hsieh's downtown project. So he went in and he tried to rebuild downtown Vegas.
Right.
So I wanted to see what was up with that.
So you say try. Is it not working?
So the last time I talked to the consultants that he hired, they said it was a success. So I'm going to go with that answer.
Hey, man, we speak the truth here. So lay it on the line. Come on.
I think it's okay. There's still a lot of problems with downtown Vegas. It's not the entrepreneur hub that I think it could be. And I've seen entrepreneur hubs that are better. So Austin's better put together. Even St. Louis. I was just in St. Louis 2 weeks ago. And they've got the accelerators there. They've got a lot of old school money rebuilding it. Right. And I think they're doing a better job than one guy coming in like Tony Hsieh did and trying to rebuild an entire downtown. I think you need a collective to do it. And I think that's where Vegas is going wrong a little bit.
Well, Vegas probably has too many strip clubs as well. That kind of distracts the entrepreneurs. I mean, I'm just calling a spade a spade. So, hey. So every month, that's amazing. I tried doing that, but after 7 kids, my wife said, I need to be still. So, there we go.
That's okay. So when I tell people I move around from city to city, there's 2 responses. One is hey, that sounds amazing. And the other one is, hey, I've got too many kids, I can't move around. And it's 100% based on kids, and it's making me feel like now I don't ever want to get married or have kids.
No, it's all what you want to do. Actually, I mean, we could do it. Years ago, when was it? I think it was 2005. I bought a big diesel excursion, big Ford excursion. We bought a travel trailer and towed that thing, a big 31-foot trailer. And at the time, we only had 5 kids. And the first place we went was this executive RV park, and it was unbelievable, man. Little executive golf course, concrete pads. I mean, people rolling up in there with $1 million rigs, right? And I was telling my wife, I was like, let's buy 2 of these. We'll buy 2 pads. We'll put 2 trailers on. We'll live in one. One will be my office. And she was like, no. But I was serious, dude. I would have done it. We do have too much stuff around us in our lives, but oh well. You are living lean and mean, I would imagine.
Yeah, I'm trying to do it. My apartment in Wichita was the first one I moved into with no furniture in it. Normally I've been doing Airbnbs. So I bought $400 worth of stuff. I've got a Costco table that's my desk right now and an airbed. That's all that I got.
Can you do an Airbnb for a month at a time?
That's what I've been doing, yeah. Airbnb, I mean, you're talking about resources. If anyone's looking to do that, Airbnb/sublets has month and 2 month and even 3 month deals on Airbnb. So you can get a pretty good price break. I always try to aim for $1,000 a month.
Sublet or with an S at the end?
I think it might be both.
Okay. I'll go check it out. We'll make sure you get the right
either
link.
one. Yeah.
Yeah, I've stayed at Airbnb several times. I like it. And I saw on the news that actually some cities, I think New York, I think Miami, others are cracking down upwards of a $20,000 fine for doing it, right? Because they want to protect their tourism and the hotels and all the taxes that they get. But I also saw they said Airbnb is actually collecting tax in 200 locations or something like that to at least contribute back to the tourism. But government's going to get theirs, my brother.
For sure. Landlords in NYC are cracking down too. One of my friends got this really nice like 2-bedroom apartment on the Upper West Side, and they had to leave it after a month because the landlord found out they were Airbnb-ing one of the rooms.
Oh man.
And they had to give back all the revenue from the Airbnb.
Oh,
pretty rough.
That's no bueno.
Yeah.
All right, man. So what is going on? What the heck is Experiment 27?
So Experiment 27 is an outsourced chief marketing officer for digital agencies. My background is I used to be the director of marketing at this 50-person agency called Dom & Tom in New York. And while there, I went from a junior account manager to their director of marketing in about 8 months. And I grew their leads, which we can get into how that happened, but grew their leads from 14 inbound leads a month to their website to over 150 leads a month. And we actually ended up adding, in the 6 months that I was working on it full time, we added $1 million in closed business. And the systems we implemented helped them double their company size this year. So we added about $3 million in revenue this year.
This year. So what is the timing on this? And were you a full-time employee for them?
I used to be a full-time employee doing sales, but then Tom, the founder over there, I kept presenting marketing plans, and then he ended up, we were at drinks one day, and he's like, all right, there's no way politically we can make this work because you have to jump like all of these people that are more senior than you. So he made me a consultant. So that's when I actually opened X27 LLC, like the actual company. And he's smart in terms of being a good businessman. So I think he paid me on purpose. He paid me a little bit less than I'd need to survive. So I would be forced to get other clients.
Oh, nice.
So he did that. And then, I was a consultant basically. So then I decided to go out and start building a team around this. Now, as of this month, we're up to 12 people.
So you have 12 other digital nomads, or is there an office?
No, there's no office. I like everyone to just kind of do their own thing. And I've got some horror stories of people like disappearing on us, but for the most part, I've been able to find some pretty high quality work just by adding that aspect. Except 2 of our guys live in the same building, actually in LA, which is your city. So 2 guys live in the same building, but it's not an office.
Right. Okay, so let's go back to the beginning here. You were living in New York City, right?
Yeah.
And when was this? Like just last year, 2016?
This was end of 2014. Well, actually mid-2014, like August 2014. I was living in NYC. I'd been there for about a year and a half, coming from college, doing sales. Realized our marketing sucked at Dom & Tom. Like we were a 50-person company, $4 or $5 million in revenue that only got 14 leads a month, 14 people filling out the contact form every month on the website.
Oh my
so it was
God.
Laughably bad, for B2B sales.
And what is the company, or what's their niche or their segment?
So they do mobile app development for the enterprise and then for funded startups.
Okay.
So outsourced development. They also do UX, UI design, and strategy too. Okay.
So, and you were just a lowly sales puke.
Just a lowly sales puke, yeah. I wasn't even senior. So they had junior account managers, then they had like a little bit senior guys who were doing the enterprise deals, and then they had our director of BD, and then the founder was above him. So I was like 4 levels down.
Okay, so you're working the phones, going to meet
They didn't
up.
do outbound at all. That was the thing. They didn't do outbound. All of the sales guys only did inbound marketing. So those 14 leads plus referrals were sustaining the entire team.
Oh, my gosh. And how many salespeople were there?
There were me, 2 other guys that were senior, and then 2 account managers, then the director, and then the director of biz dev. I mean, the director and then the founder.
Good grief. So that's 7 people basically somehow related to sales?
Yeah, and it made sense to have more account managers because most of the clients, like most of the revenue of the company came from current accounts. But the way the whole sales team's built is not good. They're actually rebuilding the entire sales team for 2017.
So account managers were basically servicing existing accounts. They weren't generating new sales.
Right, and then the 3 sales guys were generating new sales, mostly based on inbound inquiries that barely existed, and then also working relationships, trying to get referrals from other clients. The number one generator of business for agencies that I've found is actually most agencies can grow to multi-million dollars in revenue just from referrals alone, which is it's something that I've seen at X27 because we go in and we pitch outsourced CMO service, and we find that a lot of them know what to do when it comes to marketing. But the problem is that they just are so busy focused on external client work that they just don't have the time to invest in it.
Right. Interesting. So the 3 of you were really just hustling for referrals. Basically,
yeah. I would do a lot of, the director of BD would work his network, and then I would be like 2 levels down. So whenever he would have a referral that he didn't want to deal with, I would get like the scraps. So I ended up one of the first things I ended up doing was starting a meetup in New York City, and it grew to about 2,500 people. It was drinks for brand and marketing managers. And so what we did is every month I would just go in there and have drinks. None of the other sales team, well, a couple of them wanted to stop by, but never the director ever came by the meetup. But we were generating about $50,000 to $100,000 in leads every single month from that meetup. And like Dow Jones came to it, Google came to it, like American Express came to this meetup. So yeah, that was like the very first marketing thing I did for them.
So you do a meetup. All right. So how did you structure that? Would people pay like $10 and they get one drink ticket, or was it totally free? Would you charge more?
So the way you structured it's probably better than the way in your head right now is probably better than the way I did it. I didn't make any reservations at this bar. I literally woke up one morning at 3 a.m. and just created this meetup group, had it set to auto repeat, and we just showed up at the art bar in New York City. No reservation or anything. It was free meetup, and people just had to buy their own drinks. There was no sharing or anything special. There wasn't even an announcement at the beginning of the meetup. Everyone would just kind of jumble in, and then I would just try to meet everybody there, like going group to group.
And did you put some structure around it?
Never. It's still I gave it away to somebody. I don't think there's still structure to it. I think it's just
That's
a group
awesome.
of people. Yeah.
Well,
I've done structured events in the future, but this one generated a lot of revenue for almost no work.
So early 2000, I was a recruiter at a company that placed military veterans leaving the service, and I was in Austin, and part of my territory was Dallas, and there was a meetup group basically, before there were true meetups. But a West Point grad had a luncheon once a month, so I made sure to schedule my visit to Dallas around that meeting because I could meet all these other executives. And I said, how come there's nothing like this in Austin? And he said, I just started mine, so you just start yours. Right? So I said, okay. And I had an assistant that I shared with 2 other guys, and we had a database of grads. And I said, can you pull a database of like every military service academy graduate within like 50 or 100 miles? And there were like 400 people. So I did the same thing. Sent out an email to like 400 or 500 people, and 55 showed up for lunch. And it was just, buy your own lunch. But 55 people, and that group is still meeting today. So 16 and a half, 17 years later. and I got more business out of that just by hustle.
So let me dig in a little bit on that. What was the reason? So before you started this meetup, what was the mental reason that you didn't start it earlier? Because there's a reason why not everybody has a 55-person-a-month meetup or whatever it ended up growing to. Like, what were some of those barriers?
Hey, look, when you have your podcast, you can answer me the questions, okay? This is my show. Okay. I'm in charge here. Okay, so what? I'm sorry. What was your question?
I was wondering about
why didn't I do it? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, because when I started the meetup, our meetup, like there were so many people I talked to, especially after it started going, that were like, hey, I need to do this, but not for brand and marketing managers, but for like coders or for whatever group they wanted. And then they almost 100% of the time didn't do anything. Like I don't know a single person that started a recurring meetup
people are scared,
that said they
man.
were going to.
So I went to probably 2 meetings up in Dallas, and I was only at that company for 6 months. And so I did all this within 6 months. So I went to probably 2 meetings, and, and I'm thinking, oh, well, I'm brand new, and, who am I to start something like this? But, I finally asked the guy, I was like, wow, because this company that I worked for had multiple offices. They still have multiple offices. I mean, L.A. and Austin and Nashville and, all over, Ohio. And people had worked in this office for years, and others told me I should go attend the Dallas meeting. So people knew about it. And so I just said, how come nobody's doing this? So, as soon as the thought crossed my mind, the guy said, hey, there's no regulation, right? Congress won't pass a bill to give you the rights to do this. You just do it. And I said, okay. And, I looked around, leveraged the resources, and it really wasn't that hard, right? I just asked my assistant, grab the database, purge it, sort and sift, and send an email for me. And that was it. 55 people showed up. I said, well, y'all want to meet monthly? They said, yeah. I said, okay. And that was it. And so we moved the venue every now and then. But because I lived in Austin for many years, although I only worked for that company for a little while, so I stayed involved in the group. for years, and I still get their announcements. But it was just a matter of doing it. It wasn't hard.
It's even easier than it was when you had to have the assistant build the list now too.
Sure.
I didn't have to send a single email for my meetup. Meetup.com marketed the whole thing.
Right.
And they do it for all new meetups. Like
right.
You get access to all of their people.
I know.
They built it up to 2,500 people for me.
It's amazing.
So yeah, that's the kind of thing where like anybody, if they're trying to build a business or like get new customers, like this is such an easy thing. All you had to do was show up once a month, right, for lunch.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was the same for me.
And there were no dues, right? At least in the beginning, everybody bought their own lunch, and so then we got a room, right, and a set menu, kind of just a buffet style, and everybody paid. And then I asked them, we passed the hat and asked everybody to put at least $1 in, so we built up a little bit of a slush fund, and we used that just for a Christmas party at the end of the year, and that was it. So it was pretty easy, and. You just got to do it. I mean, I did the same thing on LinkedIn years ago. I still have a group, almost 7,000 members in a private group. And, you can start a group around any interest that you have and see if people join. Right? And it's just, and I like that group better than Facebook. I mean, Facebook can get too political, too crazy sometimes, too distracting. But all right. So back to you, man. This is all about you.
Sure,
so
sure.
You've got so you start this group. So again, you weren't there very long, and you're a salesman with all these marketing ideas. How did you get your boss's attention? Because I was in that situation many times. I worked with many startups over the years as an employee before I started my own business, and more times than not, the upper echelon would basically say, shut up, sit down, this isn't your job, go sell something.
So I think I got lucky in a couple of ways. One, Dom and Tom was a smaller company, so we were 50 people. So Dom and Tom, the two guys that have their name on the building, were literally in the corner of the office. Like they had their own closed off room. They were twins and they shared a desk. But they had their own desk, so I could
walk in.
Did
they have bunk beds? Did they have like a bunk desk?
It was two desks next to each other. One twin got the view of like Jersey or whatever, and then the other twin just saw a whiteboard. So I think one of them got the better deal in that situation. But yeah, they were right there, and I guess I also got lucky because I met Tom before I met my boss. So before I met Drew there, I met Tom at a random networking event, and we were. Like, I kind of went into it. He needed an account manager, so that's why he hired me as an account manager. But he really needed marketing, and I think he knew in, like, the bottom of his gut that he knew that he needed that. And that's why I found it a little easier. But, yeah, like, my director of biz dev, like, my boss the entire time was fighting against me. He would nonstop tell me how he knew marketing better than anybody, and like how marketing was like his operation. Like it was such strong pushback from everyone except for Tom. And Dom also, Dominic to a lesser extent.
Uh-huh.
So the way that I got through was literally I would just get super hyped up. Every time we were at drinks, I would just complain super loudly about how the marketing...
a little liquid courage. And
Yeah.
by the way, this drink is terrible, and so is your marketing. But you won't remember this because we're drinking.
Oh, man. I even remember one time, this is super cringe, but... I was doing like so the way that I sold apps was I would always try to see the business from like the client's point of view. Right. So I would consult them on whatever they needed. And a couple of clients had gotten back and said like my consulting was better than what they would have paid for, right? Because I was doing free consulting. I'm a salesperson. Mm-hmm. And so I had those pulled up on my phone. And one time like I just got super pissed off at Drew, who was my director of BD. And we were all at drinks. And I just started showing Dom and Tom like all these testimonials that were on my phone.
Mm-hmm. That's cool.
And looking back on it, it seems super cringy. I don't know if I would do that the same way again if I had the choice, but that worked. And then he asked me to put a proposal together. So I put together like a 2-pager, asked Tom to drinks. I presented it to him. And it still took a few months. I had to get buy-in from everybody else to move to a consultant position. But it worked out in the end.
Right.
I can go more granular if you want.
Well, I'd like to get granular on what did you do to help them ramp that up, because you grew their leads almost 11x.
Yeah.
And you did that in a 6-month time frame?
Yeah, and it's even more than 11x if you expand the time frame to a year or year and a half.
Right.
But yeah, so after the meetup, that was the first thing that I tried that worked pretty well. As soon as I became a consultant, the next thing I tried was Quora. And the reason why I found Quora was I looked at their analytics, and I do this for all our clients now. The first thing we do is look at the Google Analytics and hit referrals or sources and try to see and go back as far as you can go. And I tried to see which websites were sending traffic to the Dom and Tom site that was actually either converting to a lead or sticking around. And the way that I approach it is I try to see any site, regardless of whether if they're sending one piece of traffic but it sticks around for 8 minutes, that's worth looking at. And if they're sending like 1,000 pieces of traffic and like 1% is converting, that's also worth looking at. Right. So I tried to find all those leads. The strongest thing that I found originally was that it was like 4 or maybe even like 6 of the 14 leads a month were coming from one question on Quora, which was just like, who are the greatest app developers in New York City?
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I went through Quora and we went from just that one answer to answering about 40 of them over the course of 30 days. And then our leads immediately jumped from 14 leads a month to 40 leads a month.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you answered how many? 30 or 40?
It was 30 or 40, but all the traffic came from like 2 or 3 of them. There was like, what are the best app developers in New York? What are the best app developers in the U.S.? Like, who develops Android applications in New York City? Like all of those. And Quora, what happened after that is our leads dropped again because Quora died. Because a lot of firms from overseas started spamming. Right. So all of those questions like got burned out really hard.
Did Quora clean it up, or is it?
It's still super messy. No, I haven't gotten Quora to work for any client since that summer of 2014 when it worked for Dom and Tom.
Crazy. Yeah, I get some decent traction through Quora on some topics. Yeah, funny thing is, so I've been doing more and more with HubSpot, and as a partner of theirs, and I've basically built up my reputation within HubSpot for being an advocate of theirs. And so, and I know that'll pay off. It paid off for me with Infusionsoft because I was very active years ago online for them. And you build up that goodwill within the company, and it does come back to you over the years. So, not to mention traffic. So of course, still decent, but yeah, it's kind of a bummer to hear how it can get spammy.
Yeah, and it depends on the type of posts. So like the type of posts I was doing for Dom and Tom, it was like, who are the best agencies, and I would list out a bunch of agencies. Mm-hmm. Quora's working right now for building up our YouTube channel. But those posts are probably similar to what you're doing, Wes, where it's just answering questions and like linking back to the videos or linking back to content. That's not what we're doing at Dom and Tom at all.
So, all right. So that got you what? You said up to 30 or 40 leads a month?
Yeah. So that was an instant like 2x, right? 2 to 3x.
Right.
And then what we did after that was part of that same analytical review. We found a bunch of sites, and I was working on all of them. Some of the sites, though, that were driving us traffic were these sites that were directories. So they were lists of agencies themselves. For instance, there was one called They Make Apps that was sending us a couple leads, one called Clutch, Top Interactive Agencies, 10 Best Design. Like those sorts of sites were bringing us customers. So that was the next piece of research that I wanted to do. So I Googled I tried to enter the mind of one of our customers, and I Googled top developers New York City to just see what would pop up. And I found on this first page of Google, one, that Quora question that we answered was like number 1 at that time. So that was where all that traffic was coming from. But then number 2 was this site called Clutch.co. And it was like top developers in New York City, Clutch.co. So we made a profile on this site. It was free to make. And then basically I got on calls with the account manager at Clutch, and I would just talk to him like every day. I was like on the phone with this guy at Clutch every day to try to game our profile up. And he would help me like optimize it and all this stuff. And eventually we hit the number 1 spot on Clutch.co. And that one site actually generated about 100 leads a month for us.
Good grief. And is that still kicking?
Now it's kicking, but Clutch changed their model. And we're still number 2, but now we have to pay for a sponsorship. And it's $8,500 a month to stay up there.
Oh, my gosh.
When I did it, it was free.
Yeah, I guess it could be worth it, right? If you're getting 50 leads.
So Clutch itself is generating about 1.5 million on closed business, like those type of leads.
for you.
For Dom and Tom. And
Yeah.
it could generate more. And I'll talk about what we're doing now. Like once a company gets like, $7-8 million in revenue, like what we're actually doing for Dom and Tom now when it comes to rebuilding the sales team.
Right.
But yeah, their leads are good. Clutch leads are good. But then in terms of Dom and Tom's lead quality, everything that we did for them is holding. And their quality of leads, like I was just talking to Tom, and all we could talk about is the sales team because all the marketing qualified leads that they could ever want are there.
Oh, nice. Very cool. So you started doing this just recently, though, right? Was it 2015?
Pretty recently in terms of everybody else's timeline. I'm starting to feel like maybe I don't see time the same way as everybody else because I feel like I've been doing this forever.
No, you're not. So what's working now? I mean, because things change, right? And that's what I'm always telling people is, your goal is always to beat your best performing ad or your best performing lead source because things will change. Years ago, pages were free on Facebook, right? And I can't tell you how many people basically went out of business because all of their traffic was coming from that one source. And then, literally within about a 60-day period, they went from, 40 or 50% reach to 1 or to 3% reach on their posts. And people just weren't ready. So, even though you've only done it for a short time, like you said, things have changed, right? Meetups have changed a little bit. Clutch already has changed.
Yeah, Quora changed, right? It died. Clutch is squeezing everybody at the top for money, so we don't want to be too reliant on that. So what we're actually working on now, and what's actually seeing good results for our clients is, one is PR. So getting people placed on blogs, but only certain blogs we found, because we've got analytics for a whole bunch of people.
So PR, that's interesting you bring that up.
Yeah. So when you're in the enterprise mobile app development space, I found that there aren't too many clients that can afford like a $200,000 mobile app. So you have to go and find the people at those companies that want that. So PR gets you right in those publications, right where people are.
Okay.
Podcast interviews is a big part of PR for us as well. And then the other one is actual cold calls and cold emails has been huge for us as well.
Say that again slowly.
So direct sales, cold calls and cold emails have actually at X27 itself, that's our number one channel of new client acquisition.
Okay. Let's say that again for emphasis. Cold calling and cold email. Everybody, hey, is this on? Is this on? Cold calling and cold emails. Outbound marketing in a B2B environment is still working. Is that what you just said?
Yeah, I think cold emails. I used to think cold email was the answer, but now we just started ramping up Letitia, who's our cold caller, our inbound cold call, in-house cold caller. And cold calling, I think, is even more effective than cold email. Like I'm very aggressive about cold calling now.
Goodness gracious. Now, in reality, is there really such a thing as a cold call?
If you're just so I generated a list, or I had our VAs generate a list of the Fortune 5,000, and then come up with the directors of marketing, and then come up with their phone number. So for agents, so what's working for her? It's kind of a cold call. Yeah, she's just calling to see if she'll get through. But I have her also doing research. So basically, with mobile app development, specifically when you're cold calling, you can't just call and say, hey, we do iOS development. Do you guys have any needs for that?
Right.
Because that does not work. So what she literally is doing is she's trying to research the goals for 2017, what they might be, and then coming up with an app idea. And then she's pitching that app idea on the phone to them and asking if they'll meet at some point in the future.
And how's that working?
It's working good. We already got a meeting. She's been doing this now for 2 days. We have a meeting with Dunkin' Donuts. We got a meeting with Publix. And then a couple more pending, one with Whole Foods.
Nice.
That's from like 16 hours of work right there.
Oh,
and compare that to our cold email. Cold email campaign takes about 3 months to ramp up to start seeing consistent leads.
Yeah. Well, what I tell people is, the reason I was asking that is I think the 1970s, 1980s version of a cold call is what people still have in mind when they think about cold calls, because then it was truly cold. Like literally pick up the white pages when they still existed, and basically call a neighborhood, and say, hey, do you want to buy some insurance, right? Or,
right, and B2C cold calling is kind of like that too. Like I used to sell B2C in a call center. I did it for 2 days and I quit because it sucked.
Yeah, but I think in business, there really isn't a pure cold call. I think because of the tools that we have now, like LinkedIn and other things, you can do research on people. And so I think it's more of a lukewarm call because you can reference like other accounts. Like you've narrowed your niche, enterprise level accounts. You can reference successes you've had either with their competitor or with a similar size company or with a similar size offering. And so by referencing that, by narrowing the niche, it's much more of a targeted call. You're not just throwing darts, right? Picking up the phone and just calling somebody the first number that popped up on a Google search, right? You're putting a little bit of analytics and brain power into this, which is why you're having better results.
Right, and if you niche down, so like when our sales team at X27 does cold calling for us, I have them do 150 touches a week each, so there's 2 of them. They can split it however they want between cold email and cold calls. But basically what I'll do is they'll pick a city. They'll find out who the biggest players are in that city, and then we'll start there. We just did it in Boston, and we ended up reaching out to everybody in Boston, and we ended up closing one agency out there, right, and then using their name to close a bunch more. Now we're going out to Boston next week.
Sure.
But we ended up with 2 of the biggest mobile app development companies in Boston because of that. And in New York, we have 5 or 6 clients, a few of which, if I was allowed to talk about them,
right,
any other mobile app development company would kill to be a part of whatever they're doing.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love it. So now, and I hate to rush. We got 5 or 6 minutes. So I got another interview coming up back to back.
That's good. I hear a little complaining in your voice. It's good to be busy like that.
Oh yeah. Well, because of scheduling, we had to reschedule a couple, and so usually I allow more time. But what are you doing now though? So tell us, like this outsourced CMO, like who's your best client? So again, out of our listeners, there should be some prospects for you. So who comes to you? Who can you help?
Yeah. So any digital agency that has, normally it's between, I used to say between $2 and $10 million in revenue, but we've helped ones with like $20 and $30 million in revenue now. So basically, if you're at above $2 million in revenue and you're selling UX, UI, mobile app development, branding, even advertising and media, okay, that's the type of person we help. Whether you have somebody on marketing right now, whether a junior guy or a senior guy, or it's just the founder doing all the sales. That's where we deliver the most value.
Cool. Okay. And I mentioned your domain earlier, but it's experiment and then the number 27, right? Experiment27.co, not .com, .co.
Oh, we own .com too. That's just
okay.
.co. I had to buy .com. It cost $1,000. I think it was worth it though.
Oh, the .com was $1,000?
Yeah.
It probably is worth it, especially with the revenue you're doing, because I bought a domain name growsales.co, and because .com was taken, and people will type it in wrong all the time. So it's like I wish I could get the .com, but I think the .co's are finally coming around. People are realizing there are other TLDs, top-level domains besides .com, but
I was seeing that too, though, because like experiment27.com used to just be like one line of text that said,
right,
welcome to Experiment 27, we're coming soon. And that's like the type of thing where if someone typed that in accidentally, they could think that was our site and then not try again. So it would make us look bad. So I had to buy it.
Yeah. Well, and I may finally push on this guy that owns Sales Whisperer without the. But since I own the trademark, he took any stuff down. But people all the time, they'll leave off the. And and I'll get a complaint or, hey, well, I can't send you an email. Send it to Wes at Sales Whisperer. I'm like, the Sales Whisperer, like the Dog Whisperer, And I've had people mistake that. They're like, V, like the. I'm like, no, what is the Sales Whisperer? What? Oh, I'm like, never mind. I can't do business with you. You just self-selected yourself out of my prospect world.
That's amazing.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy. All right, so I've got links to you on Twitter, links to your website. Any place else people you want them to go check you out?
Yeah, so the website that we just talked about, experiment27.com or .co, whatever.
Yep.
That's the one if you want to work with us. But we've got a ton of free info at b2bsalestraining.org.
Oh, nice.
And it's a YouTube channel. We're at about 1,500 subs now. But the feedback on that's been incredible over the last year. So if you need to learn more B2B sales training stuff, like that's the place I would go, b2bsalestraining.org.
Very nice, man. Hey, don't be encroaching on my sales training, man. I'm gonna have to delete this segment out, okay?
There's enough for everyone, and I don't know. When I was originally listening to this podcast, the only thing I could think is how much you sound like Grant Cardone too. So there's plenty of space.
I learned about Grant, I don't know, a few years ago. An old boss of mine, actually at a startup, he said, I got his book. You sound just like him. Because it's funny. We're both from Louisiana, and originally he went into car sales. I went into mobile home sales. He ended up in L.A. I'm here in SoCal. Now he's in Miami. But he drops a lot more F-bombs than I do. That's for sure.
For sure. Yeah.
But, yeah, he's got some good stuff. All right, so I just pulled that up. Very cool. That redirects over to your Alex Berman YouTube channel.
I figured that was the easiest way to do it rather than spelling out like youtube.com.
I know. Amen. That's really smart. So how did you come about on a .org? Would you ever get any pushback from any hosts or registrars?
No, I didn't get any pushback. I still have to buy the .com, but it's like $1,200, and I haven't generated enough real ROI from the YouTube channel to make it worth it yet.
Yeah, I hear you. But that's cool. Yeah, .org is cool. All right, man. Well, we will link to that so people can find you. And this episode will go live rather quickly here after this. So I'll get you the info. You can shout it out to the world.
Sounds good, Wes. Thanks for having me on the show.
All right, man. Y'all go check him out, everybody. Alex Berman, b2bsalestraining.org. Thanks for coming on the Sales Podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Notice how the lessons from the book I was discussing at the top of the show, Winning Through Intimidation, applies to what Alex did, right? He just took action, creating that meetup the same way I created the Academy Networking event back in 2000. You got to get going. And I love how he talks about email and cold calls still working. All these dudes and gals telling you, cold calling is dead and whatever. It's like they're doing that just to sell you what you want to buy. Very few people have a truly 100% inbound-based business, or 100% online business where you literally make money while you sleep in your pajamas. And so if that's your goal, that's fine, right? I get inbound leads, but it took a long time to create. Learning how to work the phones can make you money right now while you build everything else. Okay, so I hope you took some notes from him. I mean, Alex is a young guy, but man, he's created some big results early on. I mean, the numbers don't lie, right? Growing leads from 14 to 150 per month. Added $3 million in revenue last year in 2016, or this past year. And turned things around, right? He didn't keep his comfy job just to have a comfortable income. He wanted to be paid according to his production, right? It's the same reason I got out of the Air Force. So he's making things happen. He did an assessment, right? It's one of the big things that I learned going through the HubSpot certifications, doing an audit. I've done what I call an initial process assessment for many years. If you want to work with me, head on over to thesaleswhisperer.com/IPA. It's not a beer, although I do drink IPAs. But it stands for Initial Process Assessment. And we do a deep dive on your assets. Where are things? What's working? What isn't working? How long have they not worked? How long have they worked? And from there, he was able to dive in and figure out how to grow the business. And it wasn't guaranteed, right? But he knew the few paths to take. And that's where an expert can help. You have a 360-degree world view or, potential paths that you can take. An expert's going to come in and say, look, you have a 5-degree, 10-degree, 15-degree angle right? That's where your focus can be. And just like a laser, right? The tighter the focus, the tighter that arc, the more power, the more energy. So that's why you bring in experts like Alex, like me, to help you narrow down your options so you can really test and measure and adjust and really get those results sooner rather than later. So be sure to check out his notes. I'm linking to his B2BSalesTraining.org, his Twitter account, his website, experiment27.co. But head on over to thesaleswhisperer.com/session222, and that will redirect to his episode. And as I mentioned at the top of the show, head on over to art.makeeverysale.com. Order before the end of December and save a chunk of change and get lifetime access to on-demand training, our private Facebook group, and the live calls anytime I do them in the future. So art.makeeverysale.com. Please share this episode, leave some comments, let me know you're out there. And as always, remember to sell different.